Recording? Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Office 365 Pulse. We've got a whole quorum of everybody here today. So we have some updates. There's a lot of things that popped into development, some fun ones I think it will be great to talk about. So we will kick things off and get started. So let's see who's got a good one to kick us off with today.
I can go ahead and go.
All right, go for it.
So I actually, I was interested when I saw this, and at first I was like, okay, that's cool, but the more I thought about it, I almost feel like we're getting information overload. So Microsoft announced they knew what they're calling productivity score. So essentially, similar to the vein of some of the other stuff you've seen, it's an analytic service that will give you insight to how you're using the productivity apps and how you're getting things done. But it's basically one of those classic things, almost like Secure Score or Compliance Score that you've seen. We'll go through and look at the different applications you're using, the different processes you're using, and give you a numerical grade on how that is, and give you ideas of how you can go through and improve it, or improve the process. Now, I understand why they've clearly had good success with this process in the past, starting with Secure Score, moving on to some of the other things that you see, and it seems like a good way to drive user adoption and agency adoption, and then going through and seeing ways that you can do this. So I understand the process they're following, but at this point, this is like the 7th score that we've gotten, and it almost seems it's almost getting like information overload. So I like the idea behind it.
I think it's fantastic though, because the way they're setting up the roles, it's totally different audiences though. I mean, it's going to tell you, are people actually using Office 365? So it's different.
No, don't get me wrong. And it's going to drive adoption as a whole. But if you were an IT admin sitting there managing a company of 200 people, you now have 12 scores that you have to keep going. So
okay. So we're going to have to totally agree to disagree on this one, because I'm totally excited about this one. You set up roles to go look at the productivity score. So you get a training admin or a learning admin. This is not something necessarily that IT admins have to look at. So I think you're missing the mark as what it is completely. I'm super excited about this one actually, and glad that they're finally giving us some type of number where you can go in and look at it. So I'm excited to see where this one's going to go. So I think them are fighting words, Adam. This is going to be great.
Well, no, like I said, I think it's good, and I think it's something that's going to help increase productivity overall. And again, like we come from different perspectives. You tend to approach stuff from an end user perspective. I tend to approach stuff from an admin perspective. While I agree, theoretically, I could go through and set this up for person X inside of an organization to do it. 99% of the IT admins I work with do everything, and so I just see it as a much. I think the end result is going to be good. I'm just worried about information overload for certain users or certain people.
All right. Well, okay.
I just want some more buttered popcorn right now so I can continue watching this.
Mom and Daddy are fighting.
Well, here's another one. Third-party apps and the GCC tenants. So this is one that's in development. This is a really good one. GCC admins have the option to enable third-party apps in Teams. So this is something that's in development. So users and the tenants will continue to have the experience they have today. Admins will have to take responsibility for the compliance when they enable it. Right now, Microsoft is compliant because they just disable all of it. So they're working on a way that they're going to allow you to use third-party apps at the discretion of admins. So this is something that's very nice for GCC tenants, because it allows you to have it's not all or nothing. It's at the discretion of your administrator. So this is something that's in development. I don't know where it will totally land. So we shall wait and see what happens. So this is in development. This would be something that I think our GCC administrators out there, this might be something that your ears perk at. This would be a good piece of roadmap information where you say, hey, wait a second. Wait a second. This could be good to know. Is this something where they're going to open it up? They're going to let me have access to something I don't currently have access to, maybe something that I needed that I had before that now I don't have. So I think that's a good one that's in development there. So we'll be watching that one to see where it goes. So I think that's a good one.
Gosh, aren't you going to argue with her, Adam? I was having a great time watching here. Well, I'm going to skip down into the second page here to cover a couple items in that one. Actually, 4 items if I can get away with it. The Teams Outlook integration or email integration. I think this is really cool in the fact that they're going to allow you to do more interactivity between Outlook and Teams. So what you're going to be able to do, there's 3 new features lined up for this one. You're going to be able to share emails to Teams. So you can take an email that you have in Outlook and you can go ahead and move it with attachments to any channel or chat that you have out in a Teams workspace, which I think is really cool. Plus, you can turn around if you have conversations that you have in Teams, you can send those out via email without leaving the app, which is really nice. And then it's also telling us that you can reply to missed activity emails. So you can see the latest messages, but you can respond to them directly in Teams, missed activity emails coming in, and do that from within Outlook. So there's a lot of really nice integration starting to turn up between Teams and Outlook right now. And I think that will help people who possibly spend a whole lot of time living in their inbox to start living a little bit more in Teams and sharing information rather than being your own isolated little silo over here. And you never spend a lot of time in Teams because you just don't have time to do it. So I think that's really cool. In Teams,
I want to comment on that real quick.
Go ahead. Go for it.
I just want to say, I hope this is step 1. If you look at what you're doing with Outlook integration in Teams, I like that you can bring an email in. I like that you can take a conversation out. But this really is not close to the integration that Slack has with email at this point. Slack can really do a lot more interactive stuff where you can do like composing of emails and stuff like that through the actual application itself. So I like where they're going. You guys know me, email's what I grew up on in the IT world. So I like to see, you know, something that's still core to a lot of businesses to be brought to the main productivity tool that Microsoft's driving. But I really hope this is step 1 of several to get to the point that they have deeper integration.
It would seem like if they do get that integration started, they're going to be able to build a lot more on it. So I could easily see what you're looking at occurring over time. That's cool.
Definitely.
Second one on the list that I see is OneNote integration in Teams. And you're going, well, I thought you could do something like that. Well, now they're allowing you to put a OneNote notebook tab in their team channel. So it'll bring those OneNote notebooks a lot more front and center for particular channels and chats that you have going on. So
I'm excited about that. I'm excited, very excited about that.
I think that'll make people use OneNote a lot more easily than going, where do I find it? Where's it at? Yeah, well, it's right there. It's right in your tab. Third thing that I like, and this is kind of minor, but I actually kind of ran into something last week that was similar to this, and that is image resizing in SharePoint. A lot of people will, hey, I'm going to make the image smaller. And they don't realize the image is still 4.5 meg, and that's why your page loads slowly, because all you did was change what it looks like. You didn't change the underlying size. So now they're going to allow you to start doing some page editing and resize the images within there, which I think is really cool because, you know, a lot of people are like, well, how do I make this picture lighter in SharePoint? Well, you take it out of SharePoint, you fix it, you put it back into SharePoint. We're not there to where SharePoint's now a full-featured imaging processor, but the more you can do to get some of those things going on, I think is really cool without having to leave the site. And then the final one that I really love, because this always used to drive me up the wall in SharePoint 2010, saying used to because we only have 2 weeks left in our migration. Yay! They've got what they are calling page different visualization.
This is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, so you can see the version history of a modern page or a news post and compare the versions, and they will show you the versions visually. So if you can go back and say, oh, well, here's version 10 and what it looked like, and version 9. Before it was like, well, I don't know whether it was version 6 or 7 or 8 or 9, that little component in there. Here, it's actually going to show you what you're looking at, and you can easily then restore a previous version, delete a previous version, whatever. I think that is going to make a huge difference on top of all the cool things that Modern Pages do, for you to be able to actually have people who can go in and say, oh, I screwed up at this point. I need to go back to that. And I won't get these calls of, I messed up my page. How do I get back to it? SharePoint 22 is like, I don't know that you do. Where in SharePoint Online, you're going to have a much better opportunity to see where you need to go back and make your little line in the sand and go from there. So really looking forward to those changes.
Awesome. Well,
I have one more quick one, then I know you have one you really want to talk about, Jen. But I have one more quick one I wanted to add. And you guys may have talked about this the last 2 weeks when I wasn't here, but going through and looking at it, I thought it was cool. They added onto the roadmap the public preview of the Fluid Framework. And the Fluid Framework was something that they were going through and doing that was really big at Ignite, that's based on the online Office applications, that really gives some great integration and co-authoring and stuff like that. So it's something that I got pretty hyped about when I was at Ignite. So seeing it on the roadmap as being a public preview, the sooner that gets here, I think the better the online app experience for all of us. So excited to see that.
Very cool. Yep, we talked about that one a few times. I'm excited about that one. I'm surprised it's still in development versus the launched or rolling out the preview.
I thought that rolling out definitely in preview.
Because it's been there 3 or 4 weeks, but I'm excited about that. They must keep changing something in the description or the title because it keeps hitting on our. It keeps hitting in our change
so
one.
It's there.
Like it's definitely different. Well, I have got 2 that I just think are fantastic.
Adam and I are going to step away and let Jennifer go for it.
The first one is message recall. And I think this one's funny. And the reason I think it's funny is because of the sentence in the details. The Outlook for Windows message recall feature is extremely popular with users. Yet it doesn't always work so well.
Terrible. It's so terrible. Like every time someone uses it, it's like a giant red flag of like, look how I messed up.
It's so cute. It's like somebody sent me something they weren't supposed to because there's a nice little thing here that says recall. Yet now I'm gonna go read this email. I might have ignored it before, but now I'm definitely gonna ignore it. So what they're going to do is approve upon the feature so that it recalls it from the cloud, so that anytime my client syncs, so if I'm using the Outlook client, it will remove it from my client. There are still going to be conditions where the recall won't happen, but moving the recall to the cloud significantly improves the recall success rate. And then it's going to offer an aggregate message recall status report so we can more simply see who it succeeded for and for whom it failed. So
how much trouble am I really in that I sent that?
I just think that's fantastic. So we've all been there. Y'all. We've either done it ourselves or we've had someone do it where we've tried to say, okay, well, we can recall it, but this is not going to end well. So we've been there. So that's great. Then the other one that I just think is fantastic, and I love the way that they called it. They called it the reply all storm. And I just think that's fantastic because it is a storm and we've all been there. Adam and I were part of one earlier this year and it was just, it was painful and it couldn't stop.
Yeah, it gets worse and worse and you're just like, oh my God, stop.
Yeah, it just wouldn't, it wouldn't
die.
Stop. And then people are telling people why they shouldn't be doing it. And then it was just worse and worse. And all you could do, it was like a train wreck. And I couldn't stop watching it. And it was just amazing. So they are going to basically, when they detect that a reply all storm is coming through, they're going to throttle it and keep people from responding for a period of time. They're going to call that the cool down period. And during the cooldown period, the service will send anyone who tries to reply all a bounce message or a non-deliverable receipt that tells them to not try to do a reply all to the message. The temporary block will be active for several hours, usually enough time to dampen end user enthusiasm to reply to the thread, and thus curtail the storm before it gets started or before it gains too much momentum.
Yeah, this is an amazing feature.
It is an amazing feature. It is an amazing feature because it's just so needed. And it's like, why did it take this long to do this? And could this finally be the end of the reply all and the email to everyone replying to everyone saying you shouldn't reply all to everybody because that's my favorite. I've even been on one with a group of people where then people started telling people that they should know better than replying to everyone to reply all. And it was glorious. I mean, you just sit there and laugh.
Yeah. I'm going to be interested if this dampers down. So at my old job, I used to work at a company with Jen, and they were very big on like positive affirmation. And so there'd either be like a manager would send out a list to like 200 people being like, look at this great thing Jan did. Way to go, Jan. And then like 15 people be like, yay, Jan. And like, just, that going on. Or they'd send out and be like, oh, hey guys, it's Bob's birthday. And everyone would be like, oh, happy birthday, Bob. We're so lucky to have you. And that would go on and on and on.
Well, that's supposed to be in Teams or Yammer, Adam.
Well, it's supposed to be, but let's be real. So I'm really interested to see if this feature starts curtailing some of that. Because like when I found out that you could ignore conversations in Outlook, that was like the best day ever for me. Because I was like, I don't want to see any of this junk. So I'll be interested to see if that curtails some of that too.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So, the reply all storm and the recall. So those are two features that are in development. This will be great. How are they going to test this? This will be fun.
I want to volunteer to be in a storm. I want to volunteer to be in a storm.
This is just, are they storm chasers? This is just just going to be great. So I'm really excited about these two features. I mean, for that one-man IT shop that just when it happens and it's like, oh gosh, Karen, why did you do that? Now you can, now you can just say, oops, there's a storm. I'm throttling you all. That's fantastic. I was so excited when I saw this morning. I was like, well, Merry Christmas from the Exchange team. Look what they put on there for development. I'm glad it's not April because I would have been like, is this an April Fool's joke?
She actually pointed it out to us in an email she sent to Adam and I beforehand. It's like, we need to talk about this a lot.
I was like, this is the good one. Well, this is the one that people are going to be like, what?
The Exchange team is kind of flexing that with that and the new message recall. Like, those are both pretty awesome features.
Yeah.
Well, there's another one that they've got right below that on the list, which I think is kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's the support for plus addressing in Office 365. If you're not familiar with that, this is something that Google I think kind of made more popular than any of the other email clients out there. But if I have, my email address, which would be like, tduff@company.com, what I can do is on the fly, I can say, hey, send me emails at tduff plus symbol, junk mail at company.com. And so in terms of routing to me, everything routes to me so long as it says tduff, and then anything with the plus symbol beyond also gets routed to me on the fly. And this is really cool if you are responding to, say, some vendor and you're really afraid that you're going to start getting junk mail and it's kind of hard to filter from this vendor for whatever reason. You can say, hey, please send me information at tduff plus vendor name at company.com. Well, then you're going to see these come in addressed to tduff plus vendor name. Those get really easy to filter on, like junk mail, boom.
Yeah, I use the junk out of this in Gmail. I basically, I have my Gmail name plus pizza is where I sign up for all the pizza websites. And then that way, a couple things. The other thing this does too is it gives you good insight, as Tom was kind of implying, of like what shady vendors you deal with. Because I go through it, I signed up with my username plus, and then I'll put a vendor name in there, and then suddenly you start getting spam. Like you know
where it came from,
who gave your information out, or where your information leaked from, and it's so easy to just
email address.
Right. But it's so easy to go through and write a rule that says just delete anything that comes into here, and it's taken care of.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing this become available. It's not something I use a lot, but for those instances where you really want to track and make sure you can narrow down a person's ability to keep hitting your email address, this works really well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I think we've talked about a lot of the rest of them. I think I've got 2 more, so I'll go through one of them, and then you guys can follow up if there's others in development that we haven't covered yet. But there's updates to Office.com and the Office 365 app launcher. So admins are going to have the ability to pin applications to Office.com and the Office 365 app launcher through the Azure Active Directory admin portal. So that means they can go in and pin apps for users. Office.com and Office 365 app launcher are going to start to show the same set of apps that are pinned there. Recently used apps are going to automatically pin, but users are no longer going to be able to pin their own apps. And then users will have the ability to unpin. So if Adam's my admin and he pins something for me and I don't want it pinned, I can unpin it, and then my recent stuff is going to be pinned. So that's going to be an update that people are going to see. They're saying it's supposed to be coming out in January. I don't know how much of an impact that's going to have. I am guessing that they have done so many studies on this that it's not going to impact too many people, or it's going to be a subtle of enough difference that it's not going to impact too many people if they're just rolling it out. So I'm sure they're doing telemetry on clicks and stuff like that as to where people are going. And they're probably finding that people are mostly pinning their most recent things, or that's what they go click on anyway. So I don't think it's going to be that much of an impact to probably the majority of the users. But if you do have users that are self-pinning, or that's a feature that you guys are using or training your users how to use, that's probably something that you want to kind of look into. So I have another one, unless you guys have one. If you guys have one, okay. So the other one is the last 2 I have are SharePoint lists. So they're working on format list and libraries using JSON, but they're using the Monaco code editor, which is basically going to let a developer build the JSON for the list using Visual Studio. And so there's hardcore developers like that Visual Studio experience. And so they don't like being able to, having to work outside of Visual Studio. And so they want to be able to get that same experience inside of Visual Studio for the SharePoint list. So it's kind of trying to find that balance as you go from the late development into full development, and just making it easy for everyone to work together. So that's in development. And then the last one is the auto save on SharePoint list. I'm really excited about that. So if I'm showing, hiding, and reordering, don't make me always save it as a new list. Just auto save my stupid list, my list view, so that's coming there without explicitly having to save a new view. I can turn autosave on and it's going to be working there. I'm not totally sure how it will work, if it's something that you have to turn on, if it's something in the view settings or something like that. I'm sure the team is not going to make it disruptive, so they'll tell us more about what that's going to look like when it comes out. But that's in development there, so that's kind of cool there. So
cool.
Awesome. So moving on to rolling out. There's not too much rolling out, but Excel is getting ready for Christmas. So
did you guys talk about the group expiration policy over the last 2 weeks? Because I actually think that's cool. The first 2 things. This is directly related to one of the sessions I gave at SharePoint Fest Chicago. So
is that in development? Where is that one?
That's it. Oh, that's in launch. They're in different orders.
Okay, slow your roll there, Adam. We'll get there. I don't think we did discuss that, so it'll be.
I didn't think we did either, but when we get to launched, you can totally start with that. All right.
Well, we were done with in development.
No,
we're in rolling
we
out
in development.
Now we're rolling
launched.
out.
They were in the wrong order. I'm confused, but let's go.
All right, so we're rolling out.
We're
and
in
so
the green page.
yeah. So rolling out is there's really nothing here. So I'll just go through this one quickly. Excel. If you wanted to do XLOOKUP on any platform, you pretty much can now. Excel on mobile, Excel on Universal, Excel on Windows, and Excel on Mac. You can do Excel XLOOKUP and Excel XMatch. There you go. Now you have it. And then
I like how their update says that they're successors to the iconic VLOOKUP and match functions. Like, iconic, guys.
Iconic.
Well, iconic is a mobile development framework. I only know that because Corey builds in it. So I think they mean the iconic proper there, maybe not the iconic, like Marilyn Monroe is an iconic
No,
movie
it's not
star.
capitalized.
That's true. Maybe it is just our crafty, flamboyant descriptive writer. I don't know.
Yeah, this is the guy that came up with yellow or golden folders. So hey, let's just move on.
That's true. Okay, so then there's new Microsoft Teams phone administrative enhancements are rolling out. Custom dial plans, emergency calling, and stuff like that. Auto attendant call queues. I think those things have been in development for months, and there were like 20 of them, and then I think they just merged them into one thing and put them into rolling out. So that's rolling out. And then multilingual support for the government is rolling out for Teams to GCC, DoD, and GCC High. So those are the things in the rolling out category now. And now that's it for rolling out. I think we're going to still have slow rolling out. It's almost Christmas. But now, Adam, what were you saying about groups? Go for it.
Sure. So basically, one of the sessions I gave at SharePoint Fest was based on Office 365 groups and stuff that I had learned over time. But two of the new updates inside of Launch are actually how they're handling group expiration policy. And it's one of the things that I talked about in my session that I liked, but it could cause problems. So previously they had group expiration, but how the group expiration worked was you basically set a window of like 90 days or 365 days or 6 months, whatever you wanted it to be. And 30 days out from that window, you get an email saying, hey, your group's going to expire. Do you want it? And as an admin, you'd have to say yes or no. If you said yes, you were good until the next year or whatever the window was set. If you didn't reply, you got another update, I think 7 days out, 3 days out, and 1 day out. But all the time, you'd have users that ignored those emails. Their group would then get automatically deleted. And then they contact admins like, oh, and they'd be like, well, did you see the email? Well, yeah, I didn't think I had to do anything. It's like it's telling you right there. But so that was a problem. It was a cool feature because group scrawl is a real thing, but end users can be dumb. And so oftentimes it led to extra work going through and being created. So the new two things that they announced around the group expiration policy that I thought was really cool was one, there's a feature they're calling groups activity-based expiration or expiry renewal. And basically the idea is when you have your window coming up, if a group's going to be expired, it can detect if there's activity going on in the groups. And if it is, it will basically automatically leave the group open. So if it sees people interacting in it and working in it, you obviously probably don't want to close it. So basically won't even go to the process of needing that affirmation from the owner. They'll just say, hey, you're good, which I thought was great. And then the second one was expiry notifications within Office 365 group applications. And so this, again, now is taking the single, burden away from the owner to where if users are active and in that group or in that group, when it's coming up to expire, there'll actually be notifications that show up in the various applications that you can access groups. So you can imagine you have a team in there, then suddenly at the top of the team, there'll be a notice that says, this group is set to expire in 14 days. So if any of the group users see that, they'll be able to bring it to the attention of either the owner or the IT admins, and from there be able to go through and take it. I think these are both great quality of life improvements that honestly, why I love the group expiration policy, because I thought it was slaying the bigger evil of group scrawl. Almost every client I'd seen use it ended up having end users that ignored it and caused problems as well. So I think both of these are actually really cool to see.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, cool. Okay, those are good updates. The other one is in Teams. I like this one a lot. You can now, inside of meetings, have presenter and attendee roles. This is really good when you get into it. Attendees can attend the meeting and collaborate and communicate, but they can't do things like stop the meeting, record the meeting, share their screen. I accidentally went into a meeting where I was clearly supposed to be an attendee, and I went to unmute my microphone, which is just like next to the present your screen button, and I went to unmute and hit present my screen, and I ended up showing, and before I could on-show, the person who's leading the meeting is like, Jennifer, what are you doing? And I'm like, and then I'm still on mute anyway. So I'm glad that we're starting to have these roles, because it was a pure accident. It was a Monday before coffee. So, it really just keeps people from unintentionally doing silly things, right? Like it wasn't purposeful, and I wasn't even intently, like it was just an oops. They happen to everyone.
Jen being Jen, right?
Just Jen being Jen. So thankfully it was just a random PowerPoint or something like that. It wasn't anything too crazy, but
Jen was playing space pinball.
But yeah, so that's one that's coming there. And then more stuff for emergency calling and dynamic routing and stuff like that. There's
I thought the VM one was cool.
Yeah, I was going to ask if one of you guys wanted to talk about that.
Yeah, I don't know if this matters to you, Tom. I don't know if you work in VM environments at all. But basically, if you're a client that uses virtual machines, that's what I mean when I say VMs. Migrating on-premise virtual machines into Azure was a nightmare. I've been through a couple of those with projects related to customers doing a whole transformation into the cloud, and to be blunt, it wasn't a good experience. It always went poorly. It wasn't great. So one of the things that they actually moved into launch now is direct VM to user assignments for migrations. And what this basically allows you to do is take an image of a VM that you have on-prem, import that or ingest that into Azure, and then basically it's like, this was Tom's VM. So rather than just having generic things that you go through and you put in and say, oh, here's a VM image we created, now we have this template that we have to work for our users, you can get much more one-to-one parity of what the users were used to using on-prem and actually assign it out to individual users. So if Tom had his VM set up a specific way that he liked to use, I can ingest that into Azure and say, this is now Tom's, rather than this is template 1 of 576 and try to have to figure that out.
Yeah.
What most customers ended up doing was creating 2 or 3 common VM templates and then going from there, but that was extremely disruptive to the user base because they were essentially starting from scratch and had to reset up everything. But I think this is great because Microsoft is making a pretty big play in the VM world. A lot of the stuff that you saw at Ignite coming around desktop management and stuff like that is basically to try to allow VMs to be more ease of use and enterprise grade, and to try to kind of attract that market. And so I think this is another major step towards incentivizing and making it easier of a pill to swallow for customers that have had these huge, bulky on-prem VM instances to go through and truly consider going to the cloud. So
Nice.
Awesome. Well, cool, guys. There's not really too much anything else on there. There's nothing in the canceled bucket again for today. We are going to meet again next week. We're going to meet again next Monday, and then we're going to take the week off for the holidays, a week or so off, and then we'll regroup again around the first week of January and come back to you guys with our show. So I think that is all that we have. Do you guys have any other announcements or anything you guys want to chat through?
Happy holidays, everyone. If you
Happy
don't
holidays.
Go.
No. Sweet. Well, it's been fun, y'all, and we'll see y'all next Monday. Thanks, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.